Welcome everyone. Happy Monday. I am AnnaLee Dragon, the director of the Kinderhook Memorial Library, and I am back with another book talk. It is January 2022, which sounds a little much too much like 2020 Part 2. And this is apparently a trilogy. So we are in January. It is a new year. And while it is a new year, and that brings all sorts of exciting things with it, it also has been a kind of tough time the last month or two. Our holidays were changed. The rise of the variant has made kind of restrictions coming back into place and contagion rates higher. And so I thought that why not start the new year by focusing on some comforting reads, some books that will bring us all some joy and let us travel places in our heads when we have to stay in the place where we are physically. So these books are all just meant to be like that warm blanket, nice cup of tea on a cold day, things that will warm you from the inside out. I just watched the Harry Potter reunion on HBO, and Emma Watson was talking about how books are like a warm blanket, a safe place for us to go that we can just wrap ourselves in. And so that's the theme. That's what I'm looking for this week, are books that make us feel like that, feel safe and secure and comforted in times that are somewhat difficult. And also hopefully optimistic for what's to come, better days ahead, a brighter new year. So I've got a bunch of books. I've got some fiction and nonfiction. I'm going to put up a cover and then we're going to talk about that book and then I'll do it again and yada, yada, yada. At the end, I will put all of the covers up for you to check out so that you can start putting them on your hold list or borrowing them from the library. All of the books I'm going to talk about are available in the Mid-Hudson Library System. Many of them are here at our library, but if they are not, they are available from one of our other libraries in the system and we can get them for you in just a few days. So let's get going and let's find some comforting reads to start us off on the right foot in 2022. Here we go. The Lightest Object in the Universe, which is I would argue a deceptive title for the story that's here, but it's by Kimi Eisele. I'm not sure how you pronounce the last name. It's Eisele. So I apologize for that. It says, what if the end times allowed people to see and build the world anew? This is the landscape that the author creates in her surprising and original debut novel. Love a debut novel, I do. Evoking the spirit of such monumental love stories as Cold Mountain and the creative visions of novels like Station 11, The Lightest Object in the Universe imagines what happens after the global economy collapses and the electrical grid goes down. I know, stick with me. I know it sounds a little bleak, but hold on. There's some twists coming. So it says in the New World, Carson on the East Coast is desperate to find Beatrix, a woman on the West Coast, who holds his heart. Working his way along the railroad line across the country, he encounters lost souls, clever opportunists, and those who believe they'll be saved by an evangelical preacher in the middle of the country. While Carson travels west, Beatrix and her neighbors begin to construct the kind of cooperative community that suggests the end could be, in fact, a bright beginning. Without modern means of communication, will Beatrix and Carson find their way to each other? The answers may lie with a 15-year-old girl who can ultimately decide the fate of the lovers. So it says that it's a moving and hopeful story about resilience and adaptation and a testament to the power of community, where our best traits born of necessity can begin to emerge. So that's the part that I'm kind of putting this in this book talk for this reason, is that I think we are at a place where we can look at what we're creating going forward and what really matters and what's important. And we have kind of joined as a community together and become more collaborative and collective in a way that's really great. So it's trying to find the good in all of the hard that we've endured for the last few years. And while this may hit a little close to home because it is about kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario, I think the overall message is one of hope and resilience and renewal, which are all things we could use. So if it's a little too close to home for you, don't worry, I have some other stuff that's a little more escapist. But some people really like this, and I think there's something to be said for it mirroring a little bit anyway, our reality currently, and maybe teaching us some lessons in advance, which is what books are great for. Okay, next book. The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes is one that you may know the author's name. So she wrote Me Before You, which was a huge romance runaway hit that had some heart-wrenching moments, but also some really great messages. I loved it and its sequel. This is not part of that series, but it's the same author. So this is a great narrative about personal strength and captures how books bring communities together, which as a librarian is a message that is near and dear to my heart. Also kind of tapping into the message from the last one about communities and the power of that when we all work together. So it says that Alice Wright marries a handsome American Bennett Van Cleve, hoping to escape her stifling life in England. But small-town Kentucky proves equally claustrophobic, especially living alongside her overbearing father-in-law. So when a call goes out for a team of women to deliver books as part of Eleanor Roosevelt's new traveling library, Alice signs on enthusiastically. So this is based on a true story, although there is obviously fictionalized elements and discussion and things, but it's rooted in America's past, and it says the Giver of Stars is unparalleled in its scope and epic in its storytelling. Funny, heartbreaking, enthralling, it's destined to become a modern classic, richly rewarding novel of women's friendship, of true love, and of what happens when we reach beyond our grasp for the great beyond. So it says that I read this other list because I look for books that are on multiple lists, and I read this list that said that this is the perfect book for those who found themselves a little out of love with reading lately, which may not be all of you, but the pandemic has hurt my attention span, so I have had a harder time reading in the last year or two. But it says that not only is this tale of horseback librarians a brilliant adventure, but an ode to the power of books themselves. Also, in this best-selling novel, unforgettable female friendships, love lost and won, and some beautiful journeys through the Kentucky wilderness. Bliss. Who doesn't need some bliss in their life in the new year, right? So this one, I will say, as I was writing this review for it, I checked it out myself from our collection. So I am currently reading this one, and I will have to fill you in on how it goes, but it sounds fantastic. So I hope maybe you'll want to check out a copy too. Okay, next book. Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune is the next one I want to talk about, and I just finished this one. It was my last book of 2021 that I read, and I just can't say enough good things about it. This book moved me in ways, and it's a surprising thing because it's about death and the afterlife and reconciling with the lives that we've lived, which sounds like very heavy stuff, and it is. This book managed to be inspiring and comforting and all of the things, all of the feelings. So they've described it as a man called Uwe, which many of you loved, and meets the Good Place, which is that TV show about the afterlife, which I adored. And it's a delightful queer love story from T.J. Klune, who wrote this other book called The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I am now listening to because I love this one so much. It says, "Welcome to Karen's Crossing. The tea is hot, the scones are fresh, and the dead are just passing through. Death is only their beginning." And that was on the cover, and I kind of thought, it's this cute little cartoon cover, as you saw there, and I thought, how does this go together? So it says that when a reaper comes to collect Wallace from his own funeral, Wallace begins to suspect he might be dead. And when Hugo, the owner of a peculiar tea shop, promises to help him cross over, Wallace decides he's definitely dead. But even in death, he's not ready to abandon life, the life he barely lived. So when Wallace is given 1 week to cross over, he sets about living a lifetime in 7 days. Hilarious, haunting, and kind, Under the Whispering Door is an uplifting story about a life spent at the office and a death spent building a home. I get choked up talking about this book, guys. This doesn't usually happen. And it's not in a bad way. It warmed my heart. It lifted me up. And it is, for somebody who has dealt with death in the last year, I lost my mother. I think a lot of people are in similar situations. And maybe it's not a death of a person. Maybe it's a death of, some sort of plan that you had, or a job that's changed, or things like that. I think if you're in that place, this book will just wrap you up in it and give you a big hug. And I adored every character. I read it in a day and a half. I couldn't put it down. So while it's a non-traditional kind of book, it just spoke to my soul. And I don't often get choked up thinking about them, but it was really, really wonderful. And while there are some things that may be considered tropes that have been done a few times, it's the way it's done. It's not the story itself, it's the way it's told and the characters that are built. And it's just delightful. And it made a world of difference. It was such a good note for me to end the year on. So hopefully it would be a great note for you to start a year off on, because this book holds a special place for me now. Okay, next book. Our next title is Your Second Life Begins When You Realize You Only Have One by Raphael Giordano. It is a feel-good #1 best-selling French novel, which has been translated now into English. Lucky us. It's a novel about a woman whose mission is to cure her routine-itis. It leads her to lasting joy and true fulfillment, and it's for fans of The Alchemist and Hector in the Search for Happiness. The Alchemist is, if you have watched these talks, one of my all-time, and probably my all-time favorite book. So when I read that, I was already sold. But it sounds lovely. It says that at 38 and a quarter years old, Paris native Camille has everything she needs to be happy, or so it seems. A good job, a loving husband, a wonderful son. Why then does she feel as if happiness has slipped through her fingers? All she wants to find is the path to joy, and I feel like that's something we're all searching for, right? When Claude, a French Sean Connery lookalike and routineologist, offers his unique advice to help get her there, she seizes the opportunity with both hands. Camille's journey is full of surprising escapades, creative capers, and deep meaning as she sets out to transform her life and realize her dreams one step at a time. And so this is just a book of rebirth, I think, which is what January and the winter and that's what this is the time for, right? Hibernation, so that you can emerge reborn in the spring. And it seemed to hit all of those notes, and I'm very excited to see that. I hadn't seen this one around, but I'm looking very much forward to checking it out. Your second life begins when you realize you only have one. Okay, next book. We are switching to some nonfiction because I know I have some nonfiction readers out there who prefer that. And there are so many great books that give hope and inspiration that are nonfiction too. This one, Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer, was actually a suggestion by one of our favorite patrons, Sherry. And I think she's moved away, but I think she still watches these sometimes. So I hope she's watching, and I can give her full credit for bringing this book to our library. It has now become all the rage, but we didn't own it until Sherry suggested it. So thank you, Sherry, for that. I think everybody will be thanking you for it once they pick it up. It says, reading this book is like taking a deep breath and letting it out slowly. Kimmerer writes about her relationship to nature, about the lives of plants, about her native culture, and the indigenous stories and traditions that have had meaning in her life. Her writing is beautiful and honest and clear, full of joy and grief and wonder and science and myth, which are all the things that life is made of, right? As she's a botanist, and she has been trained to ask questions of nature with tools of science, and as a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, I believe I pronounced that correctly, she embraces the notion that plants and animals are our oldest teachers. In Braiding Sweetgrass, she brings these two lenses of knowledge together to take us on a journey that is every bit as mythic as it is scientific, and as sacred as it is historical, as clever as it is wise. And that's a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert about this book, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and is one of my favorites. She also wrote The Signature of All Things, which is very nature-oriented, so it makes sense that this would be up her alley. I think that this book is important because when we're looking for calm and peace and a sense of wonder and awe and inspiration, nature so often provides those things. We live in this beautiful area. We are surrounded daily by these amazing feats of wonder that people don't get to observe when they live in a city in the same way. And Columbia County is just so gorgeous. So I love this connection, this going back to basics of listening to plants and animals and embracing the nature around us as a source of inspiration and hope. Because one thing is for certain, and that is that the sun rises and sets, and the leaves come and then they go, and there is a cyclical nature to things in nature that is just very reassuring and hopeful and inspiring. So Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Okay, next book. So I chose this next title for sort of on-the-nose reasons. The Book of Delights, Essays by Ross Gay. It is a best-selling book of essays celebrating ordinary delights in the world around us by one of America's most original and observant writers, award-winning poet Ross Gay. So this was featured on NPR's This American Life, which I love. It's a great podcast. And it says that Ross Gay's eye lands upon wonder at every turn, bolstering my belief in the countless small miracles that surround us. And that was by Tracy Smith, the Pulitzer Prize winner and U.S. Poet Laureate. I wanted to include something that had a little poetry in it because I think poetry is often inspirational and aspirational, and I don't always talk about it because I don't read enough of it. So this just fit right in. It says that it is a spirited collection of short lyrical essays written daily over a tumultuous year, reminding us of the presence of the purpose and pleasure of praising, extolling, and celebrating ordinary wonders. So this sort of connects to Braiding Sweetgrass and going back to basics, but I think so often when things are tumultuous, the thing we all need to do to recenter is to kind of withdraw into ourselves a little and into the world and appreciate the little things, the things in our routine that we took for granted. And I think that's been shown over the last 2 years, that we just thought these things would always be that way, and then our world was upside down. So I think going back to the little things that mean so much to us on a daily basis, it doesn't all have to be trips across the world or life-changing expeditions. It can be little things in your routine that bring you joy, that bring you comfort, that give you inspiration and hope. And the Book of Delights sounds like it has all of those things. It says it's about our shared bonds and the rewards that come from a life closely observed, because the unobserved life is not worth living, right? These remarkable pieces serve as a powerful and necessary reminder that we can and should stake out space in our lives for delight. And I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. Okay, I have one more book for you. Speaking of on the nose, how about The Comfort Book by Matt Haig? So I picked this one obviously for the title, but also I've had just a train of people come through here lately praising The Midnight Library, which was also written by Matt Haig. And I firmly agree. I talked about it on a book talk. I read the book. I love the book. But lately it seems to have really caught on, and a lot of people are talking about it. So if you read and loved that book, this is by the same author and has, I think, a similar sort of message, although this one is more biographical and less fiction. So it says it's the new uplifting book by Matt Haig that is for anyone in search of hope, looking for a path to a more meaningful life, or in need of a little encouragement. And who among us is not one of those people, if not all of them right now? It was named by the Washington Post as one of the best feel-good books of 2021. And it says it's a strange paradox that many of the clearest, most comforting life lessons are learned while we are at our lowest. But then we never think about food more than when we are hungry, and we never think about life rafts more than when we are thrown overboard. So this is Haig's Life Raft. It says it's a collection of notes, lists, and stories written over a span of several years that originally served as gentle reminders to Haig's future self that we are not always things are not always as dark as they may seem. Incorporating a diverse array of sources from across the world, history, science, and his own experiences, Haig offers warmth and reassurance, reminding us to slow down and appreciate the beauty and unpredictability of existence. So again, all of these books have this common thread running through them of appreciating the everyday, not taking things for granted, looking inward for some comfort, looking to nature, looking to community and each other to boost ourselves up when we're having a hard time. And I think all of those are great messages to keep in mind as we move into the next year. I love the idea of journaling, which it sounds like what this was originally for Matt Haig was more of a journal as a way of keeping note of the little things that happen and seeing how far we've come, and also notes to our future selves about the growth that we experience, the things that we learn in hard times that can be great reminders in the future. Because when things get to be good, it can be hard. I mean, it's easy to let things slip by the wayside, right? And I think when things are hard is when we really learn a lot. And so if that's true, we have learned a lot in the last few years. So let's not forget all of that and have it be for nothing. All right, so that's all of the books I have for you this week. I will be back in a few weeks with another book talk. I hope that you all had wonderful holidays and a fantastic new year, and that everything is off on the right foot. But in the meantime, we have all sorts of things going on at the library. We've got a new Spice of the Month club. We have a new jigsaw puzzle collection. If you're at home and bored, we've got 1 billion books, obviously, and ebooks. If there's anything we can do for you, please don't hesitate to ask. We are open. We are requiring masks inside the building, but we are here, and we will happily help you with anything we can. And we hope to see you very soon. And I will be back in a few weeks. Thank you so much, everyone. Happy New Year.